Rewind-A-Dynamite from the post-wrestling site. AEW, lighting up the fuse. Sit back and enjoy the bubbly as we hear from Jon and Wai Ting. Where we're going, we don't need roads. And if the buck stops here, this thing might blow. Everything you hear are opinions of the show. And if you don't like it, go to the forums and let them know.
What an episode of Dynamite. We have death by pyro. We have debates about COVID era protocols. I mean, and
everything.
Not one, but two. You dumb bitch.
What was the second one? Did I forget?
This was Mercedes bookending her segment with Willow by using it twice. Yes.
Of course. Everything you could want out of a professional wrestling.
It's time to sell pay-per-views, Way. You got to go the extra mile, and tonight they decided to go the extra 35-minute mile by the end of the show, whenever it ended.
At this point, it's not even so much extra, right? Aren't we at least expecting a 35-minute overrun every week now?
Yes. If they weren't doing the double Dynamite collision in Scotland next Wednesday, I would just assume they would have done a 4-hour Dynamite.
Sure. Don't think that they may not still do 2.5 hours and then 2.5 hours for collision as well.
All possible. I mean, as we have seen here, folks, like on Wednesday nights, TBS just hands the keys over to AEW.
Do whatever
you guys just give us a heads up when you're done. We'll put something on afterwards. It can be anytime you guys want.
Just lock the door on your way out. See you later.
Don't crash the car. Just bring it back in one piece. We're all good. So we're going to be getting into Dynamite momentarily. We went through all of the news on the XL edition of Rewind-A-Dynamite that all Post-Wrestling Cafe members received, talking about the latest involving Jim Ross, as he is now going through rehab and physical therapy after brain surgery. The WrestleMania 42 attendance numbers coming courtesy of Brandon Thurston and the Las Vegas Stadium Authority, which we'll be talking more about on Pollock and Thurston. We also discussed NXT from Tuesday night, and much in the vein of the great promo segments of all time, Austin 316 has nothing on.
My goal is to show you guys I'm not just another nympho baby.
The nympho baby, Zilla Fatu, making his arrival in NXT.
Yeah, just to even pull this photo up, I've had to type in the phrase "nympho baby," and now I am extremely concerned about what my algorithm will be showing me.
Oh dear, yes, that's that's always a unfortunate part of trying to deliver people the most accurate news here that NXT provided us. But we went through Zilla Fatu's promo and the Heatwave card. It is as it has shaped up for next weekend, going head to head with All in London. Plus, we discussed ROH Death Before Dishonor and SmackDown.
And Nigel being pulled from the show.
Yes, apparently Nigel pulled from ROH's Death Before Dishonor show and will be...
So his ROH run continues.
Is that how it works? I feel that's like a forfeit. I think
True, you're right.
I think he should be done.
He should be done.
We should never see him in ROH ever again. That's it. He goes out with a whimper. All of that can be found postwrestlingcafe.com. And Way and I also did our most recent edition of the Double Shot, going through the last 2 episodes of Dark Side of the Ring, covering Paul Orndorff and Missy Hyatt. 2 very different episodes, but as always, lots to break down and discuss of what was included in the episodes, what was not included in the episodes, and also discussing my own role in the Missy Hyatt episode as well. So you can check that out now on the Double Shot. And next week, we're going to wrap up this weekly edition of the Double Shot, because we're going to do the finales of the current season of Unreal and the final Dark Side of season 7 on Zach Gowen.
Every episode of this season of both Unreal and Dark Side of the Ring have been reviewed in the Double Shot. So if you're just maybe catching up on some of these series right now, you can follow along with us for all Post Wrestling Cafe members in the Double Shot.
Dynamite tonight was at Way's favorite named building, the Chesapeake Employers Arena in Baltimore, Maryland.
The peak,
Jordan
as
Goodman
we like to call
country.
it. Yeah, I think he went.
Did he go? Okay.
I'm not. I forget. He might. It depends if he got free tickets. He's not about to pay for them.
Okay, well, the man is he has his limits understood. Well, maybe he was one of the 3,689 distributed tickets according to WrestleTix, which is up from 3,005 when they were here last April 9th of 2025 for an episode of Dynamite. And we start off with the first of two trios matches with Will Ospreay, Hanare, and Francesco Akira. Hanare fresh off the G1, coming over here with Akira and taking on Brian Cage, Lance Archer, and Rocky Romero. It's a very intense start with Hanare. I thought Hanare looked really good in this match. I think this guy was, the aggression he showed, the audience was into him when he was in there with Archer and later with Cage. The blackout gets teased, but Hanare pops off and Germans Archer. Archer no-sells these flurry of chops by Akira and drops him with one shot. All six come in. Ospreay hits a poison Rana off Cage. And then, after a sliced bread by Rocky gets stopped by Ospreay, he's sent into a springboard cutter from Akira. And Romero does his slide on his knees into the corner and does his shuffle as he just gets his head decapitated with a hidden blade, and Ospreay pins him in 10 minutes and 51 seconds. One of the few comedic setups to the hidden blade we have seen.
Yeah, which is at this point like sort of Rocky and Trent's characters, aren't they? Like Rocky especially, he's the comic relief in the group, and losing in this fashion just kind of, feels appropriate for him. I thought a great opener, like the last time we saw United Empire on Dynamite. I thought Akira and Hanare came across really well here as baby faces. And they were both given like these really big moments to shine. And they made great use of Lance Archer here as like the sort of giant that the both of them had to overcome, or at least stand up to in the case of like Francesco Akira here. I'm actually quite impressed at how well these crowds are responding to the both of them, despite pretty infrequent appearances on Dynamite. So sadly, to me, it just makes me wonder how long before both are signed by Tony Khan from New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Dude, I don't know how you could not watch, like, especially Hanare here. This guy, he didn't get enough credit for his performance in the G1. Like, his match with Zach was one of my favorites, but he had this war with Gabe Kidd. Like, he is not like the first name that comes off the top of people's heads, but man, is he excellent
I think he should be further along than he is in New Japan Pro Wrestling. And maybe some of it is just like because, he hasn't really had a like as big of a reintroduction as maybe jumping ship to another promotion may afford him. Like this guy with the appropriate vignettes, with the appropriate sort of like storytelling, I think could be like, like a really, really compelling character. But anyway, I liked him a lot here, and this, I'm enjoying this continued association with United Empire on Dynamite. They are continuing to make reference to, Will Ospreay is cool with Akira, cool with Hanare, but he's not cool with Callum Newman. So they're still dangling that Callum Newman tension out there, and that seems very much like a New Japan story. Of course, I could even see it destined for Wrestle Kingdom, but I do wonder if there's going to be an AEW component to it. These sort of like promotions seem at least like way more attached now than maybe I was expecting.
And it gets a little tricky once like Will is the champion as well, that one would assume he would still be by the time they're ready to get to that match between them. But
well, you could have a title match and have Newman lose.
You could, yeah. You could certainly just bill it as the title match and just do it that way. Renee was very busy on this show. First up is Okada, who says that nothing is more important than the Don Callis family, but Kyle Fletcher is selfish. The only thing that matters is that the international title stays with them, and I would be happy if Kyle retains. But if I win the belt, I expect Kyle to be happy for me and raise my hand in the center of the ring. Underrated promo, this Kazuchika Okada, who I just always find like he's just like a really swarmy asshole.
Somehow, like he sounds great talking in this like very sarcastic tone, and I never expected that out of him, knowing that, like I didn't even know he could speak English as well, but like he not only can speak it, but is able to like play a character incredibly well. So I think his promos are perfect for his current role. I do wonder if there's a serious English promo in him.
I'm sure there is. This goes to his Mississauga roots that I think he,
of course,
has a real grasp of the English language.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, where everybody goes to practice their wrestling promos.
Yeah, Mississauga. That was his speaking excursion.
Yes.
Shivani brings out Kyle Fletcher. don't know what it was. This was only like 20 minutes or so into the show, but when he was bringing out Kyle Fletcher, I just knew it's like 5 matches, a couple promo segments. This is going to be the long show. I just knew it from this moment when Kyle Fletcher came out for an in-ring segment unadvertised that we're going long. I just knew it. So Kyle calls his current reign the greatest of all time, and he doesn't have to end this anytime soon, and it's not going to end at Wembley. He owes so much to Don Callis and trusts him to go along with this 3-way plan, but tells Okada that if he's honest about the family meaning everything, you'll have no problem assuring that I retain the title. But the two of us, despite our problems, can all agree we hate Takeshita, and brings up how he lost at the G1. He says he's never met someone so selfish and narcissistic as Konosuke Takeshita. And these are 2 words that the man just will not hear, and out comes Takeshita, complete with his pants.
I would hope so.
Yes. I mean, they are definitely optional among some performers, you know.
Okay, I guess so.
You know, the old Orton trick. And they come out and they just start brawling, and they have quite the fight here, ending with a Poison Rana, power drive knee, and raging fire as Takeshita holds up the title above Kyle. And the match is set, and this was our bit of physicality.
Strong showing for Takeshita, like getting the better of the champion here. Just, you know, after a few months away, maybe you needed to remind people of what he was capable of doing to Fletcher.
And then we go for the big sit-down interview as Renee chats with Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay. And she essentially had 3 questions, which were PWG, Wrestle Kingdom, Forbidden Door, and then, if allowed, let's talk about All In. That was it. That was the whole thing. And then these guys were just going to be off to the races. And I thought Kenny generally was pretty great here as like the smug senior to Will. That it was just, he was very good at being dismissive of Will in such a insincere way, like just like the false flattery of like, you're really good for your level.
I wasn't blown away when I first met him, but I saw the potential.
They set this right up with their first match in PWG, December of 2015, when Ospreay admits he was out of his depth. He was a fan of Kenny Omega. Remember 2015? Like that's before he even goes to New Japan. So like this is much earlier in his career. And Omega referred to him. He's like, at the time I was always interested in the flavor of the month, the internet darling, and I saw the potential. Wasn't blown away by him then. It was great. It was a really good, like, dismissive response to their first meeting. Then we just go to Wrestle Kingdom 17, which is quite the giant leap here, as Omega says that by that point, Ospreay had changed. He had become the face of New Japan. He had taken my spot. But this was the Tokyo Dome. That's a big venue. They had to sell tickets. And therefore, they had to call me because Will can't do that on his own. Ospreay mentions, you fail to mention building that company off the broken backs of men like Tanahashi, Naito, and Okada. And then we get the COVID debate. Just what I wanted here for this extra flavor for All In, as Will explains all the restrictions they were under in New Japan when they were losing money and the talent had to take pay cuts, and talked about the different protocols of Will having to fly 15 hours to Japan, then quarantine inside of a hotel for 2 weeks, only to wrestle in silence, while Kenny, you just had to make a 3-hour drive and wrestle in front of guys in the locker room that are all marks for you. Omega says, or he says, Omega, you could have never handled the same situation in Japan. Omega says, we dealt with the same thing here in America, and said, even if you had fans, would they even be that loud for you anyway? I thought the COVID stuff was like, it was a little much of like how much they were going into this stuff. I thought we were
like what, too deep, too inside?
Not even too inside. It was just like too far away from like the point. It was like, what are we arguing about here? Like, who had a shittier time during the pandemic? It was fine. Like they're trying to, create this animosity that, you left the company and I was the soldier at its worst time. It was fine. It was just
I felt it gave a chance for Ospreay to dig into some real life frustration. I mean, so one of the first promos he cut that like got his speaking ability on people's radar was about that exact subject, right? I believe it was actually cut on Kenny ahead of that.
It was right before the Wrestle Kingdom match. That press conference
where he spoke about this exact same thing, and there was clearly some real frustration and just like I want to even say trauma, attached to it all. And I think like to give space for Ospreay to get that passion out there in this promo, I thought that was worthwhile, certainly.
Bruv, you were deemed an essential service in Florida. You guys operated in Florida. There were no restrictions at all. So then they fast forward to Forbidden Door 2023, and Omega says how he had trusted Don Callis, but then Don turned on him, and he grew to respect Ospreay, but Will had to recruit Don Callis, and Ospreay explains, because you tore me apart at Wrestle Kingdom, you showed me no mercy, I still have the scars on my forehead to show it, and it keeps Ospreay up at night, regretting using Don Callis at that match at Forbidden Door because he goes online and the victory means nothing because of having to rely on Don Callis. Omega says, I forgive you, Will, for admitting you could not do it without Don Callis or that screwdriver. This isn't a rubber match because really it's 2-0. And I was like, they have taken the psychology of this completely in a different direction. Now Will has never beaten Kenny Omega.
And I think that's perfectly fine because
it's fine. They made sense of it.
It made the story now not necessarily these two settling a grudge as equals, but Ospreay chasing after the person he has never beaten.
And they're so telegraphing some involvement of Don Callis in this whole thing. Like whether it's like he is thwarted, but it just feels like he has to be part of this in some way, shape, or form. Renee, my favorite part of this is Renee stating, Kenny, since that last match at Forbidden Door, you both have gone through major health ailments. And Omega is just, yes. If you don't mention it, Excalibur will. Yes, I had diverticulitis. And he says, it forced me to change and become a better and smarter wrestler because now I use my head. And he asks Will, are you a better wrestler after having neck fusion surgery on 3 discs? Ospreay says that Omega has never seen me as my equal. Omega thinks that Ospreay wanted him to win because this would be an easier path than beating MJF. Ospreay denies that. He says he needs to beat Kenny at his best to become that. And the fact is, Will, you always crumble under the pressure. Will says he can't crumble this time. He has to do it on his own. It's been a 10-year chase to be better than Kenny. And Omega just says, you're going to fail again. And brings up his mother. And this prompts Will to stand up. Don't you bring up my mother. He says, well, your mother will still respect you after you lose. But I think your 7-year-old boy might need a new hero. And this is too much for Will. Overall, like a pretty strong segment that the two had here.
I thought it was outstanding. Like personally, to me, like it kind of harkens back to, like maybe some of the more memorable sit down interviews that we've had prior to like your big WrestleMania main event, like your Rock Hogan before 17, for instance. And I thought this was in league with that, if not like maybe more of an updated sort of like realistic version of all of that. This was a lot more deeply rooted in history that spans the boundaries of not just AEW and not even just New Japan, but like their entire careers that at least has been recorded. And a lot of people may have not seen a lot of what they were mentioning here, but I thought the conversation made it perfectly easy to follow along and catch you up, regardless of whether or not you were watching New Japan or watching PWG at the time. It's no more difficult than like watching an Avengers movie or Spider-Man, John, and then like catching up on some of the details, even though you didn't watch, No Way Home, right?
In this one, it actually pays dividends if you didn't see Forbidden Door, because the outcome now is actually the opposite. So Will is still chasing that elusive victory.
But like mentioning all of this and again hearing them passionately speak about it, I think adds a lot of depth and make this grudge feel a lot more deeply rooted and real than just like your typical title match, right? They by the end I thought painted a really strong picture of a guy trying to earn his idol's respect. He by sort of like discrediting his own victory over him, and I thought Omega was such a great dick in all this. Like this this moment in the show I thought was Omega at like just a good amount of heel that I thought was like still made his character believable. I thought he kind of went over the deep end, like
I was gonna say by the end of the show, like it's an interesting choice. I think it is the right dynamic. Like instead of just be like the two respectful baby faces, that it's like subtlety, they're ramping that up because
you have
they know
it's Wembley.
I think you need the grudge element, and I think they're banking on that. For these last 10 days, they want this version to really sell this grudge. And more importantly, coming out of this segment, it is like, yes, Will is chasing this title, but he's also chasing like the ghost of Kenny Omega, like in his own history, that this takes on another layer of achievement that he is trying to pull off at Wembley, and putting Kenny into like they do not want to have a 60-40 crowd at Wembley. They want like a 90-10 crowd for Will on this night, and a gigantic celebratory moment at the end of it.
Agreed. And I think Ospreay has been so strong. To me, like he greatly exceeds the standards of acting you would expect out of a professional wrestler. I thought his delivery in these speeches, he was able to sell like motivation, some of the torture behind, that motivation, really, really well in every instance he got to speak here. So
did you see the new videos that they're starting to put out?
I just saw the clip. I haven't seen the actual
really good stuff. They documented Will's whole. They've only put out the first video, and it's short. It's 5 or 6 minutes, and it is like the day. It's like the day of his surgery and going into the hospital, and it ends with him being wheeled into surgery. It's excellent. Like it's. I'm sure they're going to be rolling out a bunch of these over the coming week and a half, but. Like he talks about, like there's just these moments at his house. He talks about his social anxiety. He talks about just how scared he is about this surgery. And I mean, part of it is you hear him. This is dated like September. And he's like, man, I just hope I can make it to Wembley. And I was like, that's a perfectly logical hope in September. And then this guy, he came back within like, he's been back for months and months at this point. Like he blew past anyone's expectation level for a comeback.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out. Thanks for
They're very good, or at least this first one. That's all they put out so far. Very good. Maya World, Persephone, Hikaru Shida, and Chris Statlander for the TBS Championship. 9.5 minutes they went, and they went at a pretty high pace here. The four brawl on the floor. Statlander sends Shida into the steps. The Tower of Doom gets interrupted by Statlander, Germans Maya off the turnbuckle, and the fans were cheering for Statlander. She gets caught with a Falcon Arrow by Shida, and then, after doing a kip-up, is immediately speared by Persephone. So Statlander grabs Shida off of Persephone for a powerbomb, hits a discus lariat onto Persephone, and Maya is off the top of the double stomp for the save, and counters a Wednesday Night Fever with the roll-up, pinning Statlander in 9 minutes and 38 seconds as Maya retains.
Strong match, I felt, like very well coordinated between all four women. I think in-ring world, Maya World looks like a lot more confident, in my opinion, over like the course of these several weeks. I think her promo off the top here, she needs the reps, but you can still see right now, I would still say at a pretty early level in developing her confidence in that department.
I was surprised it was Statlander that took the fall here. I don't know what Maya ends up doing at All In. Like they can shoot some angle for her, but I thought Statlander looked very good in this match as well. This was a good four-way that they had. The Brawling Birds just cut another promo. They're coming to fight, and they expect thousands of drunk Brits.
Yeah, I'm not that into this team. Like at least not their promos. Like I'm sure in arena they'll be flying the flag, and I'm sure they'll get cheered like plenty. But I like these promos take away, I think, what are some very, very real like people that have actual genuine motivation to want to like win these championships at Wembley, and instead we're just kind of getting a lot of like ramped up, I'm gonna kick your ass, type of like I don't know, attempt at like pro wrestler speak that I'm just not really buying into.
Do you think these two are slowly teasing us here that we're going to get a Ginger and Posh Spice inspired
Totally what they're going for
All in London? I mean, this kind of slaps you in the face here when you see these two.
You're kind of right, yeah.
Jon Moxley and Jay White in the Continental Challenge Cup. I'm not going to say the best part. The best part was the match. But on the way to the ring, Excalibur explains, well, at Redemption, David Finlay almost injured Jay White's neck, and then last week worked over the neck throughout the whole match, which just sounded like one of those, we're going to make good on a big complaint of last week's match between Jay White and David Finlay, that was hard. That was not emphasized enough, and here it was like just forced into this Jay White entrance to explain last week's story.
I guess better late than ever, right?
They also mentioned that White is 2-0 against Moxley from the G1 when both were in 2019 and a Continental Classic match that the two had. So this was
strange to think about now, but like back then, like White was, well, I mean the G1 anybody could beat anybody, sure, but like Jay White was like a top guy in New Japan, and Moxley was just kind of a guy coming in, right?
Yeah, I mean that was his big summer breakout post WWE. Moxley lands a cutter early on, and then it's White with jabs and chops in the corner, and he gets caught by Moxley nearly gets caught by the Blade Runner, and White applies a Rings of Saturn, and Moxley rolls to the rope, but he has injured his shoulder in the process, and this becomes White's focus. Moxley would hit a dive, and to put his shoulder back into place, drove it into the apron.
Yeah.
This guy's a chiropractor's dream.
Sure, he learned that from Marina Shafir.
Certainly, yeah. You just hit it at the right spot. Then Jay White would hit a total of 4 suplexes onto Moxley, and this continues to damage the arm. And Moxley grabs White's arm for a rolling Kimura to the Bulldog, but another suplex and Uranagi break that hold up. Rear naked choke is applied, and then they have like this overhead camera shot of White rolling on top from the rear naked choke, and this near fall, this place exploded. And it was kind of like the Ray match with Gable, where it was like the crowd was good for this, and then it just escalated to another level with this near fall. And we see a Blade Runner hit, and Moxley rolls out to the floor as the crowd's going pretty wild. He comes back in, gator roll, goes to the Bulldog choke, and then he rakes the eyes of Jay White, hitting a Death Rider and another 2 count. Big pop for the kick out, and he gets immediately off the kick out, applies the rear naked choke, has 1 hook in, and then crosses the legs and gets the submission at 19 minutes and 14 seconds. I thought this match was terrific.
Yeah, very strong match. Some fantastic sequences of counters and recounters leading to that finish. Again, we're getting more of a chance to see White play babyface here, and I thought he like, especially against a Jon Moxley, like playing the underdog, getting beaten down as much as he did. I'm not sure if I've seen him that much in this role, but I thought he did well, and he still comes out of this match despite losing, feeling like a bigger hero.
Yeah, I thought this was the match of the show. I really enjoyed this, and they got a lot of time on this show as well. So Moxley advances, and they're doing the tease that they're going to shake hands, but never actually do, because as Moxley goes to leave...
I don't know if I felt that tease of the handshake. Did you? Like, it felt like they
White
were waiting.
Was clearly like standing there, like expecting it.
It felt just awkward, like they were waiting for something. Right?
Well, they were waiting. Maybe the dogs were late here.
I wonder. I wonder. It just
someone let the dogs out.
Awkward. Nobody did. Evidently.
Yeah. The dogs attack Jay White, and Moxley he's like, peace out. I'm out of here. The conglomeration who had been watching backstage, Orange Cassidy and Kyle O'Reilly, run down to help. And we get the returning Gabe Kidd, who I guess maybe he was on the same flight with Takeshita, coming over to Baltimore, nails Cassidy with a big lariat. Roderick Strong comes out, followed by Brodito and Hangman as the dogs powder out to the floor. Paige makes fun of Finley's boots. The Demand come out, and all of a sudden we're getting a sense that this is going to be the trios title match at All In to get every single person on this card, because Brodito and Paige state any teams that want to challenge us, just show up in London. And later we would hear from Prince Nana and Swerve, and they're going to have a team. And it looks like the Dogs are going to be in this. The Demand are going to be in this. Probably, I don't know, Jay White and the Bang Bang Gang, maybe them too. Like, this feels like this is just going to be almost a huge multi-man for the trios belts.
Yeah, and what sort of matchup are we talking about? Like some sort of battle royal, like what like New Japan does with the trios? Like where like one person gets eliminated, they all get eliminated. I don't know, but you know, like the big thing for all of this is Swerve teasing bringing in 2 partners, and of course that'll ramp up speculation about possibly the New Day entering in this spot.
Which is a weird match to debut them, but I guess it's really about the introduction and the big pop, less so the match.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Renee interviews Maya World. She says she just beat 3 of the best, and Willow comes in congratulating her and brings up the promise she made before Redemption that if she had beaten Tekla, that Maya would get the first title shot. So they're going to run this match on Collision Saturday night, which is a live Collision in Reading, Pennsylvania. Jonathan Cruz, MJF's Spanish translator, is in the middle of the ring. This is when I just figured we're going to 11 p.m. at this point. He has a message for Andrade sent on behalf of MJF stating that Andrade will never be the real world champion, is not a real Latino man, and Jonathan Cruz is more of a man and more guapo than Andrade. And says, I would say this to your face if you were here in Baltimore, but you're not. Because you're a coward. Well, wouldn't you know it? Andrade. Everyone came to Baltimore on Wednesday night. So he comes out, and we get an impromptu match that goes all of 13 seconds. Dia de los Muertos and the DM as he pins Jonathan Cruz. Andrade has a message for MJF, and unfortunately, someone had a trigger finger in the back because MJF's video starts to play mid-sentence before someone quickly cuts it. And Andrade continues his promo and calls out MJF, and then MJF appears on the screen where he is in a pool back in Long Island and refers to him as Andrew. And he won't see him until Wembley. He is the one true champion. And so Andrade gives another DM to Cruz.
Yeah, too bad about the audio, error there, sort of spoiling, the segment later on. But did I also hear Andrade say, "Come on, fucking fake champion"?
Did he?
I could have sworn I just heard a giant F-bomb
dude,
there.
TBS, the parents are out of town. Just that's you do
stay
with
out
this.
of stay out of the liquor cabinet and just I pretend I didn't see anything. Yeah.
We had the Renee doing the split screen interview with Mercedes and Willow, although in the same arena and apparently like very close to each other because they found each other in record time. Willow says that Mercedes can never take away her smile. So Mercedes says, "You dumb bitch." Willow says, "Unlike you, I'm real. And I have a connection with the people, something you've always been chasing, but have never established." And Mercedes says, "You smiled over top of me after you injured me in New Japan. Then you danced around me after beating me for the TBS title. And people like you? Well, you're just a dumb bitch." And that's it. Willow's like, "Where is she?" And she comes after Mercedes, but it's Mercedes that finds her first, jumps her from behind, and we get a brawl into the ring and a big pull apart between these two. "You dumb bitch."
Yeah, some portions of this kind of felt like a Jerry Springer segment where like I feel like they used to do these sort of things where like they're behind the curtain and they're talking, they come in front of the curtain,
those are always the best when they would be they'd have to restrain them and pull the person backstage and then they'd come out and then they'd jump them again.
So as far as like maybe storytelling or just like I don't know, like depth of like criticism, I mean I thought like what Willow had to say was okay, but it's completely false. I mean you can definitely argue Mercedes has had many portions of her career where she's had that connection with the audience, but for the
maybe
sake of story,
Willow's just trolling the Mercedes fans online.
Maybe
her mentions will be the barometer of how effective this segment was.
For the sake of story and just for like a line, I didn't mind it. I thought like maybe Mercedes needed a little bit more juice behind her words. I mean, what she said was like, "You were smiling at me during all of those moments," and I guess it wasn't bad. But this is mostly just kind of being built off of like the match, in my opinion, and not so much about the storytelling, which is perfectly fine. Intensity, I thought in the brawl was good afterwards, but it's a clear sort of like second, compared to the main event of Ospreay and Omega. Yeah.
Okay. Well, maybe this, instead of an I Quit match, we get I'm a dumb bitch match. That's what this culminates.
How do you win that one?
You got to say into a microphone, I'm a dumb bitch. Bro, it has never been done before. Perfect language.
Wasn't one of those like New Japan, like King of the King of Pro Wrestling Championship matches, like didn't feature like something where you have to say something ridiculous?
It did, but I don't think they had to call themselves a dumb bitch.
No, okay.
As I recall. Nana and Swerve respond to Hangman's challenge and say, whose house? Who? Nigel and Hechicero.
They didn't say who, so there were no actual teases of like the New Day or anything. But
no, but everyone's making their own teases at this
Yeah.
point. So if they're going in without naming them, I think everyone knows exactly what's happening. Nigel and Hechicero with the story that Nigel's ankle is not 100%, but he says, I haven't been at 100% for most of my career.
I can believe that. I can
Sure?
believe that
Okay.
of most wrestlers.
Yeah. So the left ankle is wrapped. They explain there is ligament damage, but it's not broken.
Yeah.
Okay.
What?
Nothing.
You
I'm just
doubt
saying
that?
that's what it
entirely
is. They had
possible.
like very specific information.
They have doctors give this information. I'm sure he went through X-rays and all that stuff.
I liked the way the announcers stipulated here that Nigel said, if you go for my injured foot, then I'm going for your mask.
I felt like that was a good sort of like desperate last ploy at trying to get Hechicero not to target his injury.
Some mind games. I love it.
Yeah.
So Hechicero's like, bring it on, you dumb bitch. And he kicks at the injured foot of Nigel and he bends it around the rope. Nigel manages a crossface, but Hechicero's out torquing on the foot and does his swinging hammerlock. Tower of London gets avoided, and then a London Dungeon is applied, and Hechicero again just constantly goes to the foot, applies an Indian Deathlock, and then he does the dreaded shoot into the knee strike by Nigel. And Nigel just locks on a guillotine, and Hechicero goes out. 10 minutes and 13 seconds. The man with one leg progresses to the semifinals.
Yeah. I'm probably the only person who feels this way, but this was actually my favorite match of the show. Like, the crowd certainly weren't that loud for it, which tells me maybe they didn't know about the whole leg injury coming off a collision, or they didn't.
It didn't
care.
feel like it. It didn't feel like they, like if you had not followed,
because the injury didn't even actually take place. He didn't sell the knee after the match, or at least it wasn't known that it was.
It was a line by Shivani later in the show that just stated he was injured.
And then
I can imagine many people did not see the Continental video they put up on Monday.
Yeah. But, I found all of this captivating. First, I thought the groundwork they laid from, the videos online, I thought all of it did a great job of, maybe adding that extra layer. I thought Nigel's selling was great in this. And I think, Hechicero is normally, a very intimidating villain. But, with a near broken leg, he becomes your worst nightmare. And I thought he was vicious here in his submission attacks and his relentlessness. To me, there was a lot of, interesting, details and logic here with Nigel threatening to go after the mask if Hechicero goes for the leg again, just as one last attempt at trying to save his leg, right? And then with Hechicero targeting that leg with the low single early on, Nigel at the end here anticipates it, and that's when he had the knee ready, right? Which led to the guillotine finish. So I thought it was a very smart match, well executed and set up through social media, that I personally appreciated a lot.
Yeah, I think everyone sees them going to the final. I think that this is the story that they're going with, and it's they're going for what is the most compelling story, and it's Nigel at Wembley.
I think so. Yeah. Looking at the field. I mean, Eddie is always somebody who's going to, have the crowd's favor, but I feel like for the setting, I think Nigel makes a bit more sense. You can even maybe predict the outcome of the rest of these matches, in that I feel like they could do Mox versus Kyle, because that's
what I thought. Is Moxley finally gets his win to go into.
He got one already, I believe.
Oh, he did. That's right.
He'll get another one. Okay. Like, but then nonetheless, like it's still a bit of a marquee match because they have history. So maybe that just feels a bit more natural. And also Nigel versus Claudio also feels a bit natural since,
That's
like,
what I thought. I felt Nigel and Kingston is a weird mix to do, but him beating Claudio to go to face Moxley, that makes the more logical sense. So I think we think similar, and Kyle as well. So then it is a video with Darby Allin, and he says he thought he had to change everything to make it on top in AEW, but then he met Sting, and he sees the same potential in Stephen Borden, Sting's son, as he once did in Kevin Knight. And he warns Kevin Knight, "I'm going to beat you within an inch of your life at All in London." And on the theme of an inch of someone's life comes our next segment, where Shivani brings out Kevin Knight. And Kevin Knight kicks Shivani out of the ring. He says, "A lot of people have been questioning me, but I've got answers. I'm not a young boy anymore. I'm the greatest TNT champion of all time." And he calls out Darby. And Darby walks out, but Knight stops him. And he basically wants to make sure that he is not armed. He's got to open his jacket to make sure he doesn't have any bombs attached to him, that he doesn't have any firearms at his disposal. And he explains, "It's just you and me, Darby. I don't have the Don Callis family here. It's just you and me, mano a mano." And then the pyro goes off, obliterating Darby, who is caught in a sea of fire explosions. And he rolls down the rampway here, and the announcers took the cake here. Excalibur, who I swear to God, the most innocent until proven guilty response here, says, "That was either the luckiest pyro malfunction in history for Kevin Knight, or the Don Callis family was up to something." So Excalibur he's keeping his options open. And then Taz, "Hopefully Darby's okay. That was bad." So Darby is,
you can maybe judging by John's reaction, you can maybe understand why this spot works so well for Danhausen.
Oh,
and maybe not a serious figure. Although I mean,
you might have had a different opinion. Yeah. I hated this angle, but I hated it more for by the end of this. Okay, so we have literally just seen this guy like like exploded here, like he was the Undertaker at that Elimination Chamber. Okay, he's like dead, and that's not enough. Kevin Knight attacks him, throws him into the ring, and lines up a chair for a coast-to-coast drop kick on Darby, the same way he was taken out of the Continental Classic. And Stephen Borden runs down to take care of Darby as they place him in a neck collar and stretcher him out as the fans chant for Darby. Now, number one of my biggest pet peeves is the double stack of injury angles, because all it tells me is that, hey, we're going to blow him up with pyro, but that's not enough. So you're telling me, why even do the first one if we believe it's still not enough? Like, can we just pick one, and that will be the one that we're going to sell as
could it not be a combo of attacks? I mean, the pyro was maybe just meant to stun him, not necessarily murder him, to allow for the rest to occur.
Anyone that wants, then you're telling me that like literally blowing a dude up, like that's not going to be enough for the audience. Like that should be shocking enough.
Was he blown up?
He had pyro. Like what was the
blown
purpose
into
of this?
him? Well, I mean, a spectacle is what they were looking for.
They got that. They absolutely got that. Then he's wheeled out to the stretcher, and Kevin Knight catches up to them, and he walks up to Stephen Borden and tells him to stay in your lane. And Doc Sampson's there, and Stephen Borden is like trying to like shake in anger. But there was like an uncomfortable amount of time here where it just felt like Borden was either supposed to say a line or this was supposed to move at some rate, because they just like, everyone just stood there until Sampson's like, okay, we got to go.
No, you had Darby to hold him off, like tell him not now or something, right?
All right. This was my low point of the show. I didn't enjoy any of this. I guess we are going to get Kevin Knight and Stephen Borden maybe in Scotland next week.
Perhaps, yeah. Like they are
like that. They felt like they fast tracked like so much of this Stephen. Like they really haven't told this story about him training Stephen Borden on TV. Like people know that, but it just felt like they were like all of a sudden here's here's the Karate Kid that we have just introduced, and we got to get him into a role immediately.
Yeah. Like Darby's promo about saying how like Kevin Knight like just like throwing you remind me of Stephen Borden like that felt a little bit forced.
How many viewers like it's not probably not a small amount. They're like, oh my God, Sting's kid is training. Like we haven't seen this guy since the retirement match.
Yeah, that part was a little bit forced, but I mean, clearly they have some big moment or spot involving him in the
At minimum, I think we're going to get an angle. Like Kevin Knight takes this guy out, or they do a match at some. Maybe it's just an angle they do, but obviously they're going to do something next week before the pay-per-view.
Mm-hmm.
And Darby, this is a 10-day injury. He'll be fine.
Oh, he'll be on Collision like in the tapings after this. Yeah.
I just thought this was so preposterous, even by Darby standards, and it's like when he was doing all the with the Don Callis family, and he was just gonna like blow shit up and stuff. Like, I think sometimes they're a little they get too stupid with Darby ideas. And this to me was one of them. It felt like way too much. It was literally overkill.
Without the pyro, you would have felt differently.
They could have taken the pyro out. Yeah, that would have been preferred, or at least sell that was significant enough.
I mean, it stunned him. For the rest of it.
It stunned Kaz for sure. Excalibur wasn't so sure. He's like, oh man, that might have been a malfunction. We got to get that checked out. And then the main event, Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks against El Clone, Mark Davis, and Jake Doyle. Omega's music plays, and he gets confronted by Will backstage, but we can't hear them. All we hear is him at the end telling Kenny not to get hurt out there. So this was a shoot.
Yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm.
So the other ramification of our big angle was that all of a sudden we got the fog of war here throughout the Chesapeake Employers Arena, because holy Christ, this place was just like looked like the Rascals had just done a pre-tape in here.
Yes. Mm. Somebody opened the window.
The Don Callis family, they run wild, and then at 10:22 p.m., Excalibur announces we are going to the final commercial break of the show. They isolate Matt. They remind us of his decade-long lower back issues that have still not corrected themselves. And he starts fighting back after the break. Tag is made to Omega. He hits some Snapdragons, V-trigger to Doyle, and then just lifts him for the one-winged angel and pins him. It was like a fairly routine. Once Kenny got his comeback, he laid in some of his big spots. We also had the triple super kick with the Bucks and Omega, and then the one-winged angel at the end. As you know, Kenny should be just plowing through guys, and that's what he did here.
It was a fine, felt like an exhibition, with the Elite here. Honestly, pretty inconsequential, and for my attention, by the 2.5 hour mark, I found it pretty forgettable.
Yeah, I wonder if this is going to. Do you see them putting Ospreay's team and Kenny's team on the Go Home show next week? Like,
oh, okay.
Like that's fact you had the 2 trios matches. It's a chance to do that. I couldn't see them doing like Ospreay with Copeland and Cage, but maybe Hanare and Akira potentially.
Possible. Yeah, possible.
It's a big Dynamite next week, like with them being in Scotland and all. So, end of the show? No. Roppongi Vice and Archer come out for a big attack on Omega and the Bucks. They bring out a table, and Archer's about to grab the Bucks and chokeslam them when Copeland runs down, and Cage just saunters down the aisle. Copeland's going wild here, helping the Bucks, and eventually Cage gets involved, and he goes for a kill switch when the Bucks go for a super kick. Trent ducks, and they super kick Christian, and now Copeland is like, fuck these guys. These dumb bitches. And so Copeland attacks the Bucks, and they all brawl to the back, and Kenny is left alone in the ring. Show over? No. Out comes Will Ospreay, who comes out, and he tells Kenny, you've got about as much charm as a parking ticket, and says that he's a prick for bringing up his 7-year-old son. So Omega then calls upon security to remove Will. On what grounds, we don't know. But these 2 goofs come out, and
he's
they're going
to EVP, I guess, is what they explain.
Okay. I guess he has that power then. So look at this one guy. So they go to take him out.
Sounds like he's 15 years old. He might be the 7-year-old son.
And then on the way out, Kenny calls him a little English bitch. And he doesn't want to see Will until Wembley. So Ospreay runs, you wouldn't believe this, but he overpowered security and made it into the ring. He attacks Kenny, but as security holds down Will, he's hit by a V-trigger. And then he drapes the belt in front of Will on the apron, tells him to take one last look, and lifts up Will because the table is still set up on the floor, and hits a one-winged angel off the apron through the table. And this is when Kenny hits his WH Park approval rating. This was Ken Chan.
This was water guzzling Kenny Omega. Yeah.
Well, salutations, William. We are off to Wembley.
Oh my God. Yeah, I felt like I understand the booking of all of this. You wanted to like maybe hit every single one of these big matches, ahead of the big show, but I did not. I thought it was all too long by the end. So to me, it was more of an issue of timing of the show in general. I also felt like in Kenny Omega's performance, as much as I liked it and actually loved it during the sit down interview, here he took it way too far and way too mustache twirly for my liking. What you got in the sit down interview was I thought somebody who you could still buy is most of the time a babyface, but just along with Will Ospreay. Ospreay just somehow ignites a side of him that like is just sort of a dick, right? But a subtle dick in throwing lines like, I saw potential, but I wasn't that impressed. Here, this was just like comic book villain, Kenny Omega, that I thought was maybe a little bit too much for my liking.
I mean, it's what they were going for here. I mean, it was, I thought overall, like the Omega Ospreay stuff, like there were a lot of angles with them on this show. Like they pushed this really hard, and as they should be at this stage of everything. It felt like at the end of this episode, it felt like one of those shows of Dynamite where, I mean, I don't smoke, but you could imagine someone needing a cigarette. It just felt like there was so much on this episode. Yep. A lot of stuff, some that landed, some that did not. But generally,
almost every match on the card had representation on the show, didn't it? Like, are we missing anything from All Out or All In? I mean,
gosh, off the top of my head,
let's just go through the card one last time for everybody. Sure. Okay, so we've got the Continental Challenge Cup Finals, of course. You saw those two matches, Moné and Willow, which had a segment. Ospreay Omega, of course. Cajun Cope and the Bucks, yes. Andrade versus MJF versus Ciampa, the Gauntlet, yes. Divine Dominion and Brawling Birds, they had a segment. Kevin Knight and Darby Allin, they had a segment.
Were they on the show?
Fletcher, Okada, Takeshita had their thing, and then Page and Brodito. So every match had a feature, right?
So
we have 9
matches.
Nine
matches.
matches. So
9 matches. Okay. So, well, there you go. That was Dynamite. Way really enjoyed the Nigel Hechicero match. I love that Moxley Jay White match. That was really great as well. The sit down with Omega and Ospreay, like it was strong. It was what it needed to accomplish. Like those were some of the high points of the show. And so they have Collision on Saturday with Eddie Kingston against Claudio and Kyle O'Reilly against Cassidy and Willow defending the women's title against Maya World. So, and then next week it is the show in Glasgow, Scotland, which they're at over 6,000, and hopefully that's like a pretty hot crowd for Dynamite. And we should make mention that next week you will be joined by somebody else on Rewind-A-Dynamite because
I'll be joined by Kate.
Kate from Montreal will be there because this time next week I will be taking off in a flight, taking the red eye to London. So God, Thursday is just going to be a massacre for me.
Yeah. So we'll keep coverage rolling despite John not being around, but we will be hearing plenty from John Pollock and Neil Flanagan over the course of the week from their post wrestling cafe news updates.
I'm playing around with the Patreon app, and you're able to go live on Patreon. And my goal is that I'm just going to hit record on this thing with Neil and subject him to content creation throughout this whole trip and just be keeping everyone abreast of our trip throughout the multiple days that we are going to be stuck together until Neil finally says, I need some time by myself.
I think he's mentally prepared for it. Yeah.
Yes. And speaking of Neil, he will be with me on Thursday for book club. And what is up this month? Well, it is Total Nonstop Agony by Vince Russo.
We are overworking that man because he will be joining me on Friday to talk about SmackDown, Kevin Owens versus CM Punk from Toronto, of course, which neither of us will be attending, unfortunately, but we will be watching from home and we will be live. 10:15, I would say, PM Eastern time for all of our Post Wrestling Cafe patrons, talking about that show. So a lot of Neil in the weeks to come.
So if you want to sign up next week, we're going to have on the ground coverage in London, England, and tons of audio and other updates from London for our members on the Post Wrestling Cafe, and then regular schedule as usual. We're working out the details, but me and Wai will be doing a post show after All in London. Very late for me and prime time for Wai.
Thank you in advance for staying.
Yes. And we promise there will be no rundown of Heatwave that night.
We just won't have time. I mean, I feel like you will probably somehow watch it, just knowing
not that day. There's no way I'll get to see it that day, but maybe at a future date. All right. Thanks everyone for joining us on the YouTube channel. We're heading on over to forum.postwrestling.com.